Okay guys, welcome back to the channel. Going to continue this little dead period we have between January, between I guess Capital Audio Fest and February of show coverage when I ramp up, and every month after that is going to be show coverage. Wanted to get out some videos that I've always had in my mind to do, just hadn't had the time to do. But also, it doesn't sleep during these holidays with things that I've got on the agenda. I still have to do that Angela Gilbert Young amp, the custom amp that we talked about for my subwoofer, but I'll put it on my main GR Research and Extremes. That's getting packaged up probably within the next week, sent to me. I've got follow-up with Emerson, who has the cool spatial audio rig and those custom amps. That's a great video if you haven't watched that yet. I got to do part 2 of that. We've got stuff with, I think Primaire is still sending me a surround sound processor. I've got a video with Blue Jeans Cable. The next one I'm going to do is going to be focused on their power cables, not their speaker cables like the last one, because their power cables, and they're sending me one for a demo. It's very rare, at least in their history, for them to come out with a power cable, and they only were going to come out with something unless they knew it was something that could beat, at least on the metrics that they valued, some of the high-end power cords out there. And this one's much less cost, and I also represent it, so I want to give you guys a little bit more detail, as well as I'm getting more details on it, my first exposure. And one of my members already has some of the power cables. So I got a lot of stuff in the hopper. But what I wanted to do was get this video out to address things that, again, I wanted to address more controversial things in 2024. And this isn't super controversial. This is what I mainly consider helpful, because one of the things as I advance in the hobby, you inevitably encounter a lot of emotional immaturity with arguments on forums. I'm sure you guys have seen this. If you go on Facebook groups, anything audiophile related, or YouTube or anything, you see a lot of emotional immaturity with people's opinions and how to navigate things that are commonplace throughout, not just the audiophile hobby. But in the audiophile hobby, for whatever reason, this hobby tends to have a high percentage of trolls, haters, and just a level of disagreement and lack of understanding. And maybe it comes from the fact that we all can call ourselves audiophiles no matter what, but there is no benchmark or certification for what that really means. And I'm not here to tell you what that means. You can call yourself whatever you want. You can enjoy the hobby however you want. But what I wanted to do is, at least for me, share with you, at least, I don't know, I'm going to do this off the fly, probably 6 to 8 things that I've learned throughout my 40 years in the hobby that will really, well, it paid off for me. I think it'll pay off for you. And you'll be able to be more like Neo in the Matrix now when you go to these forums and you don't know what's to believe, not to believe, or you get riled up or emotional. These are things that help me, at least. So I wanted to share some of those things with you. And the number one thing I wanted to share with you, and these are actually based on, I think I read it from Harvard a while back, some qualities of being emotionally secure and emotionally mature. And you can extrapolate this, and that's what I'm going to do, into the audiophile hobby. And so number one being, one of the most important traits to learn and have is the ability to listen to other perspectives. And that is something that I see as a big problem in the hobby, especially on Facebook. If you go into a Facebook group, almost assuredly 90% of them plus, depending on if they're objective-based or subjective-based, they turn into complete echo chambers where they will not listen to other people's opinions. If you're a subjective in the objectivist, they think you're an idiot and they kick you out. If you're an objectivist in the subjective and you just question anything that might hurt somebody's feelings, they kick you out. And that really just shows a level of immaturity, insecurity on both sides. What you need to be able to do in this hobby is be able to learn from different perspectives and hear different perspectives without getting triggered, hurt, and emotional, such that you need to be protected and create an echo chamber. And again, mostly the people at fault are the moderators of these groups that are over policing. And some have good intentions. I'm not really saying they're bad. because you can also let things get out of hand. I'm not calling them out particularly, but I'm just saying in general, you as an audiophile need to be able to listen to different perspectives and not get triggered by it and not be living in an echo chamber. You will not grow in this hobby if you stay in that echo chamber. Number two, very important, almost equally important, is you have to be able to set boundaries. Boundaries for yourself and boundaries for others. So let me give you some examples. When you are in this hobby, it's very easy to get in that gear merry-go-round, always thinking the next thing's better, churning and going through gear. And a lot of people get into trouble of going over their budgets and spending every last cent to get that next thing. They get it. They're happy for 2 weeks, and then they want to get the next thing. You have to set boundaries for yourself. And never being satisfied is a very good indication that you aren't able to set boundaries and be happy. You have to be able to set boundaries for yourself, budgets, or this hobby can be counterproductive to you and even destructive to you. But also you have to be able to set boundaries for people you deal with. A lot of times you can be too nice of a guy to dealers or manufacturers, distributors, whatever. And it's something I grapple with. I know my friend Doug in particular, he's been taken advantage of several times, being too nice, too accommodating, too lenient with people that have wronged him or, ripped him off with, in particular, a distributor I know, that he dealt with. He gave him a second chance when he really shouldn't even give him much more than a first chance. And he got burned 2 times. And so this is something you have to be able to set boundaries for, standards for what you can tolerate from others, but also set boundaries for yourself. Don't go in there trying to be friends to everybody, and don't be in there worrying about vanity metrics, keeping up with the Joneses, and get yourself into trouble budgetary-wise. Another thing you have to learn in this hobby is admit when you're wrong. I mean, if you don't have... Look, I go to more shows than almost anybody in the hobby. I've seen more gear, seen more systems, heard more things, know more people than 99.9% of this hobby. Yet I'm still learning things, and I admit when I make mistakes. And I'm going to probably do a video of all the gear I bought. I don't even... Luckily, I've learned from my mistakes over the years, and when I buy something now, I buy it to keep, and... I have no problems with it. But this year, I might change out one piece that, in hindsight, maybe I would have done something differently. And I'll share that with you in a future video. But learning from your mistakes and admitting when you're wrong and made a mistake is very vital. Don't just have confirmation bias and, that thing that you or your ego doesn't allow you to admit, hey, I bought the wrong gear, or I used the wrong person, I bought used, I took the cheap route, or I used the wrong dealer. All these kind of things, you need to be able to be honest with yourself. Excuse me, I'm about to sneeze, I think. Okay, it went away. Okay. I don't like to edit these videos, so I wanted to prepare you guys. Anyway, false alarm there. Next thing you have to be able to do is respectfully disagree with somebody. What I see is when people disagree, and look, I see people constantly say the most idiotic things. Normally, I'll just roll my eyes to myself and not even confront them. But at some point in any time you're in this hobby, you will encounter somebody that wants to argue with you, wants to debate you, wants to say stuff to you that you, at least in your opinion, doesn't make sense. But you have to be able to keep a level of respectful disagreement there. Sometimes these people just don't have the same experience that you do. Sometimes they're coming at it from a totally different taste profile. And as I showed you and shared in the past, when we take in-ear measurements with the Bach in our listening position, our ears are shaped differently. Some people hear things totally different. Some people actually have hearing damage. A lot of my friends have, tinnitus or hearing loss. If they went to an audiologist, they would not be the prototypical person you would use for taking advice from. But that doesn't matter. Whatever works for them works for them. But it brings up the other point is, if you are strongly feeling about something and it's based on your subjective thoughts, don't think that your subjectivity applies to everybody else. And that's why it's important to both have objective and subjective information, because mostly objective information will apply to more people. It doesn't tell the whole story. It won't explain everything all the time, objective data. But that does tend to apply to more people than strictly your subjective opinion. And that's why when you read subjective reviews of, let's say, cables, you almost never see people agree with their subjective impressions. You know, there'll be the same exact cable and two different people have two different results. So again, admitting when you're wrong, respectfully disagreeing, and have some self-awareness of when your subjectivity may not apply to others. It kind of is another point that I wanted to make. On that same vein, you have to be able to control your emotions. I see too often with people that either disagree, they won't get in a verbal confrontation head on, but they'll do passive aggressive, very emotional vomit type, either post online, they'll go run to their system of forums and bitch about the other guys and vice versa. And it comes across very much as emotional immaturity. And a lot of times I get, well, not a lot, luckily, on my channel, but when I do get those kind of posts in my videos, sometimes people will comment like that. I actually leave a lot of that stuff up unless it gets very insulting or spammy or, you know, out of line. I won't remove the comment, because a lot of times what you don't realize is your emotional vomit, whatever you write on the forums, really set, or on comments on a video, or creating a video yourself to emotionally vomit, that says more about you than what you're trying to get across. The fact that you're triggered by it and that you're so emotional over something that is a hobby. This is a hobby. It's somebody else enjoying cable elevators or whatever, to be all this emotional and angry about it, or somebody that disagrees with you. You have to be able to control your emotions. Now, being able to take criticism, set those boundaries, admit when you're wrong, these are all kind of things that apply in your life regardless. But one thing that tends to happen in a hobby is that we think we know it all, because when you call yourself an audiophile, there is a presumption that you do know more than Joe Schmo on the street. And I see this all the time. People think that I'm an audiophile. I know much more than, you know, XYZ person about the hobby. Well, having that know-it-all attitude and not respecting others that aren't audiophiles is a minefield for embarrassing yourself. I just showed in a recent video the wife of one of the owners of the bot giving their impressions. And to be honest, her impressions of the bot are just as valid as the other person I featured, who is a longtime industry person, dealer, very high IQ audiophile in terms of knowing how to use the equipment and experience with equipment. It's all equal, guys. I mean, music is something all of us can enjoy. Just because we call ourselves an audiophile does not mean that it makes us immune to criticism and it makes us superior to other people. In a lot of cases, this is very funny, when I went to the Toronto audio show and I went to the Denon booth where they had the in-ear earbuds that measured your in-ear hearing and your ear canal. It was very interesting for him to show me results of people that, some of the people that aren't the most hardcore audiophiles, some of the reviewers that came in there had their ear drums worse off on an objective basis than some of these younger people in terms of what they can hear. And so just because you've got experience or you think you know better, it doesn't make you immune or make you be able to talk down to other people. Their impressions of what they hear is just as important, and sometimes they can hear better, okay? So at least have that kind of self-awareness. And one final thing that I think follows up on all of these things I talked about is you have to have gratitude versus hate, envy, or, you know, worrying about what your personal needs are over others. A lot of times, and then this is a problem in the society in general, we don't think about gratitude. And we just finished 2023 and had Christmas and Thanksgiving. This was a great time to reflect on what you did have good happen to you in 2023, what you can change, obviously, but having gratitude is something that we have lost in this hobby and in society in general. Whatever you have, whatever your system is, be gracious that you have that, and whatever you're enjoying, yes, you can always look to do better, but gratitude for what you have is something that definitely should be part of your equation to help you enjoy the hobby more, and it will help you be liked more by other people in the hobby, and you will end up not being hateful when you see people with bigger systems, more expensive systems, better gear. That can get very neurotic in people's heads if you're don't have a level of gratitude for what you do have. So again, this was a very brief video, but just some tips that I see as a problematic part of the hobby and society in general, quite frankly, that maybe will help you as well, focus you on some things that maybe you can address, because I've had to address all of those issues as I go through. Trust me, I'm not immune to any of those things. It's stuff I had to work on and learn. Wanted to share those with you. Hope you found it helpful. If so, sign up, subscribe, and I'll see you back here soon.